What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. After Sound here, bringing you Splinterlands content every single day. We also stream right here in this channel every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday morning, so come by and say hello. All right, guys, I want to talk about the upcoming Rebellion summoners because we got a little alpha during the live stream of the Rebellion presale, and we found out that in addition to what we usually get in terms of core set summoners, so there's a slew of rare summoners and a slew of legendary summoners, we are also going to potentially get we are going to get 5 additional summoners, and based on some of the other hints that Matt has dropped in previous town halls and town squares, some of those could be common level summoners. So when I'm thinking through what does that mean, basically, here is my outline. Now, this is, I talked about this on a live stream. I kind of gave my breakdown. I've had a little bit more time to think about it, so I figured I'd record a video here. But essentially, how I'm viewing it, right? You're going to have 5 additional summoners. You're going to have your 6 legendary summoners, and then probably like your 6, I guess, rare summoners, even though the dragon's going to be legendary still. So when we look at what initially came out for Chaos Legion, let me go here to the core set. Again, this is going to be my guess, right? You're still going to get your 4 mana-ish summoners. And actually, I'm going to get into that in a second. You're going to get your legendary summoners, right? We'll talk about the mana as well. But there's going to be this additional set of common summoners. This is my guess, and this is how I'm thinking that the team would design it in order to make Rebellion summoners very desirable, as well as keep a lot of value with the older Chaos Legion summoners. So there's a couple of things that will be happening with Rebellion. We know that there's going to be Summoner Tactics, which is going to be that second step, but there's also going to be Dual Element, and the only ones that are going to have both a Dual Element as well as Summoner Tactics are going to be the Legendary Summoners for Rebellion. So that's further off, and we'll get to that last. When we talk about where we're at now, though, and in terms of what Matt wants to do for like with all these rule sets getting very specifics, for example, like, you know, a magic only rule set, he wants to open up the game to have a bunch of cards available by offering these dual element summoners. And I can imagine rule sets even becoming more specific, maybe with a dual element, but a certain type of attack type, right? Not attack type, a certain type of ability, maybe with, magic, but it could also be sneak, right? So you could have a Deep Lurker and Oceanus, right? But you would also be able to combine that with any kind of multi-element that it was. So let's say it's like blue and white or water and life. You'd be able to tap into both of those. Again, I'm kind of getting too much into the weeds here. Let me get to my actual prediction. Now, here's the thing. The most important part for this is allowing players to play at the most basic level with ghost cards, right? Even though they're not earning, but at least give them a chance to play with ghost cards so that they have access to summoners, even if you have something like a Little League rule set. And that, to me, is kind of like the lowest possible or lowest common denominator. You need to have a summoner available in the starter deck that is 4 mana or less. So my guess is that we see a 3 to 4 mana summoner that will be multi-element and have 0 abilities. So in that way, it's going to be competitive with your rare summoners here, right? So your General Sloan, Tarsa, Obsidian, Thaddeus Brood, Kelia, in the sense that you'll have access to 2 different splinters or 2 different elements, but you will not have any kind of buff or debuff that a Kelia or a Thaddeus or a Tarsa would give you, right? Whether that's 3 mana, whether that's 4 mana, I don't know. Right now, I'm probably leaning a little bit more towards 4 mana because you would then be able to compare apples to apples, or at least a little bit better apples to apples, by saying like, all right, Kelia, should I go 4 mana with Kelia and get the +1 and +1 on armor and speed, but I only have access to water? Or should I go with a 4 mana that gives me access to 2 different elements, but I don't get that +1 armor, +1 speed? So again, I can see it being 3 or 4 mana. But either way, those would be the ones that would be kind of competing. And I believe I may or may not be right. If those end up being the common ones, that could be interesting. Now, the Summoner Tactics, I think, is the bigger deal here. And so therefore, when I was considering, okay, when we didn't know about the 5 additional summoners, when we didn't know that common was going to be thrown out there, my guess was, okay, you're going to have the Summoner Tactics be available, but those are going to be kind of OP compared to your rare summoners, right? Again, Kelia all the way down to General Sloan. So in a way, you had to increase the mana for them in order for the cost to be justified and to have a little bit of a balance. Well, that gets solved with what I just shared, right? If you have separate multi-element that are within that 4 mana or under and can compete on a mana level with those older Chaos Legion cards, and I'm just talking about modern, right? The broader set of modern right now, then that covers that. Now, that means I wouldn't be surprised if we see these summoner tactics, maybe these end up being the rares, right? So you still have access to them in the ghost cards, but you don't have access to them in Little League, for example. So I can see those summoners being 5 or maybe even 6 mana, because if they end up being quite powerful, I wouldn't be surprised to see a 6 mana summoner. Now, here's the thing. Sure, now we're looking at the legendary summoners here, right? So let me just go ahead and filter this out so we can look. All of these summoners are going to be 6 mana. So in order to make them competitive, you can put them at the same mana level, but these summoner tactics are going to be very targeted. It allows you to look at the battlefield and make adjustments, whereas if you go with a Lily or Immortalis or Possibilis, you don't get that, but you're going to get, up to 3, well, we shouldn't count Quixote. You're going to get 3 buffs or debuffs or abilities or whatever it is. So in that way, you're putting them on the same level. Could it be 5 mana? Maybe. I think those summoners would be super cheap then at 5 mana. Again, we're talking about just like 1 mana differences across the board here, which matters in low mana matches, but obviously the game is trending towards a lot of higher mana matches, which kind of makes the mana cost for a lot of summoners become irrelevant, and it will then lead to power creep for a lot of the newer summoners. But that's besides the point. That's outside the scope of the video. My whole point here is that I can imagine the summoners, right? We'll call them the rare summoners that offer the tactics, being 5 to 6 mana apiece and being somewhat on the same level of competitiveness or balance as your legendary summoners from Chaos Legion. To me, that would make the most sense. And then finally, you're going to have your legendary airdrop summoners that come in, and if you consider the fact that untamed legendary summoners were at 7 mana, you got your Chaos Legion at 6 mana. If these summoners, as Matt says, he wants to make them awesome, right? They're going to be dual element and have summoner tactics. Now, that doesn't mean that they're going to have 3 different abilities that you can choose from. Maybe it's 2 abilities or maybe even just 1 ability, but the fact that you can go to 2 different splinters or 2 different elements is going to be huge. I can see the premium for that being 8 mana or above. Now, could they be on the same line as your Untamed Summoners? Could we see a 7 mana cost? Potentially. And actually, I'm going to go back to this now. If the team wanted to do something that was interlinked so that in Modern you had summoners at different costs all across the board, you would be able to go, your Chaos set has a 4 mana and a 2 mana, or sorry, 4 mana and a 6 mana, not counting the 5 mana Lux, right? That's a premium card or a promo card. But you could have the core set and I guess the summoners kind of following for Rebellion being maybe 3 mana for the common multi-element with no abilities, 5 mana for the the ones with summoner tactics, and then 7 mana for the legendary, which would kind of be on par then with the Untamed Summoners. Now, I still think if they're going to be potentially that OP, multi-element and summoner tactics, they're probably going to be a little bit stronger maybe than even Kitty and Jotun, right? And Kitty and Jotun are still susceptible now. So I would think that it should be 8 mana or higher, but I can see it being 7, and especially if they want to go with the odds, right? 3, 5, 7 to offset the 4 and 6 from Chaos Legion, that would make a lot of sense just kind of cohesively as well. So that's where my head is at for the upcoming summoners. Again, this is all just pure speculation, but I'm getting excited about what we are going to potentially see in just a little bit over a month here. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'll catch you all in the next one and see you around the game. Take care.